yourself in the mirror, turn that frown upside down. Show what you're working with. You can't depend on someone else to see your future. That part is up to you. Be a leader. You are a leader. You are a leader. Rising right up the rank.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Legends and Leapers, July installation of Legends and Leapers. My name is Ebony Wimbush, President and CEO of AMAC, and I want to thank you for joining us today for another dynamic and engaging conversation that we have planned for you. Before we get started and I turn it over, I want to tell you about some of the things that are happening in the life of the AMAC National Office. So we have a new team member. The national office is growing. To those of you who were at the San Antonio conference and been keeping up with us on the web, on social media, you knew that Ramon Lowe is now our Director of Membership and Industry Engagement. And so I'm sure some of you know him. He's well known in the industry, but he'll be getting to know many of you. And so please welcome him. He's very active on LinkedIn and all those social media channels. So definitely drop him a line. Also want to tell you about a program that we're working on, and we are going to execute on September 19th and 20th. So AMAC and Austin Bergstrom International Airport will be presenting Journey with AMAC. It'll be both a program update and a business matchmaking event. We'll have a networking reception on the 19th, and we will have the actual event on the 20th. The information is available on our calendar. We'll put that in the link. And we encourage you to register and join us to learn about the billions of dollars of infrastructure projects that are happening out in Austin and their deep desire to focus on and pair, whether it's leading minority-owned companies, women-owned companies leading, or teaming with primes. So looking forward to seeing you out in Austin in September. As a reminder, our membership cycle is well underway, and I know many of you have been hearing from us and calls and emails, and so remember to renew your invoice. And now for why you're here, I am going to turn it over to our co-host. You see that our co-host Lauren Mangum Reed is still on maternity leave, and we've got someone filling in for her, but certainly very, very capable, Victor Harris. But with that, I'm going to first turn it over to Ricky Smith, our chairman, as well as CEO of BWI Airport. Ricky.
Thank you, Ebony, and welcome guests, welcome audience. In the spirit of love and comedy, I want to wish our good friend Lauren a speedy return. That's more in comedy than it is in love, just to make the record straight. So, I always try to do a table set and just remind you all how, where we are and why we're here. So Legends and Leapers is a virtual production that's designed to bring someone who may be more experienced in the industry, not necessarily older, but more established in their place in the industry, legend, and someone who may be more upwardly mobile, emerging, not necessarily younger, but newer to the industry or to his or her profession, still has some road to travel. That's a leaper. And we try to pose questions that really just get them to talk. The questions themselves aren't intended to be technical or profound. It's just to try to get them to talk, because we think once we get the speakers talking, something special is heard. And so that's what Victor and I will be trying to do for the balance of this program, is to just create opportunities for you to hear what these special ladies have to say. They're both known in the industry. They're both amazing in their respective careers. And Victor will give you more insight on that in a few minutes, a few seconds. We don't give them questions in advance. And so although Amber tried to write down questions, I have no idea where she got the questions from. They were not questions that we provided her. And we do that again to try to keep them on edge a little bit, so that we can get kind of genuine, honest responses from them. off the cuff responses for them. And so that's Legends and Leapers. It's been running for a while now, and we're happy to see that we have a healthy attendance here again, and we look forward. We hope you enjoy the program. With that being said, I will proudly turn it over to Victor Harris, and he will do introductions. Victor.
Hey, thanks a lot, Ricky. It is a pleasure to be here and to be able to introduce these two wonderful powerhouses. I'm excited because I get to be on the moderation side of this. I've been a leaper and been on the other side. So Amber and Davita, I know how y'all feel, not knowing what questions are coming, but it's fun to be on the rapid fire side of this. So I'm excited. So before we do any further, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this. First, introducing Miss Davita Taylor. Davita Taylor is the Vice President of Procurement and Business Diversity Development at Nashville International Airport. In her current role, Davita oversees department personnel, procure supplies, and require materials for operations at Nashville International Airport and the General Aviation Airport, John C. Toon Airport, as well as the local and federal supplier diversity initiatives and programs. Davita is a proven leader in the aviation industry. Under her leadership, BNA was awarded the Medium Hub Inclusion Champion Award for the airport's prioritization of small, minority, and women-owned business enterprises, with over $217 million in contracts awarded. Davita is a certified member of American Association of Airport Executives, AAAE, a certified master compliance administrator, certified public procurement officer, and a member of the National Institute of Governmental Purchasing, and past president of the Middle Tennessee Public Purchasing Association. Her community involvement includes, but not limited to, the Boys and Girls Club of Rutherford County, Nashville Minority Business Center, Nashville Black Chamber of Commerce, the Tennessee Latin American Chamber of Commerce, Salvation Army Women's Auxiliary, and Nashville Chamber of Commerce. Most recently, Davita was recognized as one of Nashville's Women of Influence by the Nashville Business Journal. Davita is a Tennessee native, and she is a graduate of Middle Tennessee State University and Austin Peay State University. And now, Miss Amber. Amber Meshack is the Director of Business, Jobs, and Social Responsibility, BGSR division at Los Angeles World Airports. LAWA is the City of Los Angeles public agency that owns and operates Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, and a top 5 busiest airport in the world, as well as Van Nuys General Aviation Airport. As Director of BGSR division, Ms. Meshack is responsible for workforce and business opportunity programs, including supporting delivery of inclusivity commitments for the $30 billion LAWA Capital Program, overseeing LAWA's first source hiring program, managing the small contractor development and bonding assistance program, and developing policy and strategic partnerships for business and workforce development. Under her leadership, BGSR established LAWA's first small contract training program, the Build LAX Academy, launched the Contract Finance Assistance Program to support access to financing for small construction contractors, established the first team dedicated to overseeing business and workforce commitments on capital projects, led the development of LAWA's policy to require inclusivity commitments as a competitively scored category in all major procurements, and directed the first study at LAWA to examine gaps in contracting equity correlated to race and gender. Please help us welcome both Ms. Davita Taylor and Ms. Amber Meshack.
All right. Welcome to Legends and Leapers, ladies. So let's, thank you, Victor. So let's jump right in. I have my questions, I think. I know Victor has his questions and he's rubbing his hands, so he's ready to go. So
oh, goodness, Amber.
We'll just start out with a warm-up, kind of a warm-up question. So obviously both of you are in this industry, and as I know both of you, you are passionate about this industry. And so can you talk a little bit about why, from your perspective, this industry is so special and why the audiences see it as a special place today? The smartest one can go
So,
first. Right,
okay, so that'll be me. I'll go first. No,
For
just
sure,
kidding.
for sure you.
Well, so for me, this industry is special, one, because it is ever changing, always moving, always growing, and it's necessary. And so for me, that's really what makes it's special and unique. There's so many opportunities. You just think about it, it's usually a small city is kind of how I think of this industry. Everything is needed. You name it, accounting services, you name it, concessions, everything is needed in this industry. And so for me, that creates unique opportunities for all types of people, for everybody to kind of jump in and find their niche and find their sweet spot. And that's one of the things that attracted me to this particular industry, is because there's always something new going on. It's something different. I'm a lifelong learner. I don't like to be bored. And so in this industry, it's always something new. I'm learning about virtual ramp towers. Had no clue that there was such a thing here. But then come to find out, there are some minority-owned businesses who are involved in the staffing aspects of those. And so who knew? So for me, this industry is really special in that lots of industries that you go into, they don't have everything. And so aviation seems to have everything. And again, it gives everybody a unique opportunity to participate. So no matter what you do, you usually can find your way into the aviation world.
Yeah, I want to definitely echo a lot of what Davita said. I think aviation is special in so many ways. I think for one, it captures the imagination, right? Like to travel places. LAWA's motto is to, connect people and cultures, and that's what we do. That's what aviation does. And so, that leads to innovation, ideas, connections. It just, that is kind of the nature of aviation aerospace to begin with. And then on top of that, just like Davita said, airports are like little cities. And there's literally everything from research and economics to outreach, public contact, business, everything from cleaning toilets to, building multi-billion-dollar terminals. So what that means is that for someone like us is that we get to constantly learn and expand and be connected to brilliant people from all over the world, not just, the country. And then last but not least, I think many of us find a special place in aviation because of the legacy that aviation has had in creating Black wealth, right? And I think in many ways, the aviation industry established the model for what it means to be able to use public investment, use concessions, use this growth industry to create more equitable wealth creation opportunities. And of course, that didn't just happen by accident. That happened through leadership of course, local leaders, airport leaders, but also organizations like AMAC, who've been there from day one to push the envelope on what it means to create equitable opportunities. And I'm super proud and excited to be a part of this panel. I think the Legends and Leapers series really is emblematic of what AMAC stands for in terms of promoting that legacy and sharing, information across generations and spaces.
Absolutely.
Well, both of you are at large airports, and both of your airports have robust capital development programs and expanding food and retail programs as well as other concessions activities. What role do you see yourself playing in inspiring minorities, ensuring minorities have access, ensuring that those who actually get access to the opportunities have a fair, a level playing field to perform successfully? But what do you see your role in that whole dynamic?
Well, since you went first, I'll start this. So I see my role in really pushing the strategy, right, around how that happens, because obviously concessions and construction, they all have the opportunities are going to manifest differently. The access to the opportunities is different, but we need to have a cohesive strategy that aligns with our overall business case, our business goals. And so that I see that my role is really pushing strategic approaches, not just tactical or not just, one-offs. It's really about pushing a strategy and integrating that strategy into the larger LAWA strategy. I also see myself as a voice, not for the concessionaires and the diverse businesses, but just helping to magnify their voice. I mean, I think is really to put them in position to speak up and state what they need, their needs and their capabilities. That's what I see as primarily is really driving a strategy that's cohesive and that fits within the larger LAWA business model, and also amplifying and lifting up the voices of the diverse and small businesses themselves.
So I will definitely, echo everything that Amber said, and I'll add to this because I think I sit in a very unique role, and I'll call myself the female Denzel Washington, and here's why. So if any of you have ever seen his movie, The Equalizer,
Okay.
So that's kind of where I consider myself in this role, is I am the equalizer. And I say that because I sit in two unique roles. So one of my groups handles the business diversity side to make sure that we're keeping our eye on all of our initiatives, making sure that people of color and women get an opportunity to participate in all that we do. But then the other side, I also handle our procurement. So that for me gives me that extra edge and that extra ability to make sure that I can equalize things out, because I know the things that are coming way before other people will know that they are coming. So then I have an opportunity to also assist my other group in making sure that we've got people prepared for these opportunities. And then when it all comes back down to it, I can make sure that things are done fairly and equitably. So when they come back to me in the procurement role, then I get to make sure that they are done equitably and fairly. Because again, one side of my house can go out all day and run and make sure and do all of our outreach and prepare everybody, and then come back to the table and something then goes awry in the procurement process. And then look what happens. Nobody's really getting to participate, or a lot of participation doesn't happen. But then because I wear my procurement hat, I get to then equalize that out. And so for me, I feel like that is part of my role, because again, everything that Amber said is accurate. You want to be a part of the strategy, because for us, this is long term. So we're not only preparing these companies for the current project, but we're also preparing them to stay in business, because I really want them to be sustainable and outlast any of my projects that are going. So when my projects are done, they are still thriving and in business. And so again, for me, I think of myself as the female Denzel, and I can be the equalizer.
Well, Davita, you had me nervous there for a minute. I know you, so I know this not to be true, but I thought you were going to say you were the training day Denzel Washington.
Oh, no.
Well, ask some people around here, and I might be someday. So.
Well, you talking about equalizing, I might want to jump in for Ricky take over all the questions. This question is for both of you. Obviously, you definitely have a strong presence and a strong conviction about what it is you guys are doing and how you guys are implementing these roles. I want to know what got your start. What was the emphasis to say, okay, this is where I want to be and this is where I can make my impacts?
So for me, I kind of stumbled into what I'll call public administration, just period. So I really stumbled in it, and I'm going to make it really short, but I started off in law school and hated every minute of it. And so I decided to, see if I can get a clerkship to see if I really wanted to bail out. And I got a clerkship with one of our local utilities. And from there, I got introduced to a young lady who handles certification. I had no clue what certification was. And they introduced me to certification. Long story short, I joined an organization who handles certification for several entities around the city, and fell in love with certification And that made me start falling in love with the conversations I was having with individuals. So in certification, you are having one-on-one conversations with entrepreneurs, amazing people amazing risk takers who are out there jumping, trying to make their dreams happen, trying to provide for their families and their communities. And so for me, that was the interaction. So me getting a chance to talk to those people and then realizing how at that point where I was in certification, I was also beginning to start to make a difference in their lives because that certification was important to them because it was one of the keys to get them into some of the places they normally couldn't get into. And so for me, being a part of that and thinking that I can be a part of changing somebody's generational trajectory. And so for me, listening to those people tell me their stories on how they began and the meager means on how they began. And so for me, that really touched me and made me go, you know what, I definitely, this is where I want to be. This is exactly the place that I need to be. So I've been able to carry that into whatever industry that I was in from, I've been in transportation, I've been in local city government and public administration. And so in those things, I get to help effectuate some of that change.
So I guess to answer that question, so in terms of aviation, it was somewhat lucky. Like Davita said, I kind of fell into it. I had the opportunity. I'm not going to say how long I've been working for the city, but I'm a longtime public servant. And I had, as working for the city of LA, since the airport is owned by the city, I had the opportunity to take a promotion where I was basically serving in like a chief of staff type role for the executive that was running the landside access modernization program. So I really got it was really the infrastructure bug even before aviation that kind of, drew me into aviation. But I think the real answer probably goes a little bit further back. I think my background is actually I was a community and labor organizer. That's what I grew up. My first organizing efforts were actually in Opelika, Alabama, Malvern, Arkansas, New Orleans, Louisiana, Greensboro, North Carolina. And then when I came, and then I was in California, one of the first things I did as a very, very young person, almost an infant, was fighting against California's Proposition 209, which is we eliminated, affirmative action in California 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Supreme Court just did nationwide in education, California did that 30 years ago in education, education, employment, and contracting. So we've had an uphill fight for the last 30 years to, just keep any type of business diversity and keep any type of equity in the public share of dollars. I mean, so that I think speaks to kind of my background and how I got into this particular niche in aviation.
All right. So again, very, very good answers. So I probably should have said this early on. So Legends and Leapers attempts to have a light but provocative, entertaining conversation. We don't ask technical questions. This is not how do you stand up a procurement process, and we probably won't ask you to list and discuss actual projects that are going on at your airport. I mean, that information can be made available outside of this program. And so that's not a question we ask. Somebody in the audience asked that we ask that question. So we're probably not going to ask that question. However, a question that I will ask, and again, we're trying to be fun and somewhat thought-provoking, assuming Victor doesn't have another question right this minute because he interrupted me the first time.
I mean, I did, but you can go.
That's sorry. So
I respect my elders.
So he's, oh man, wow. So you've been talking to Lauren. Oh God.
Wow.
You're supposed to have my back. So anyway, so both of you drive, correct? Both of you drive vehicles. I know in Nashville, the vehicles you drive are faster than move faster than the vehicles in, in LA, because LA is in a bunch of traffic and you guys are normally in a parking lot on the roadway. But you both drive vehicles.
True,
So
true.
if you had to use a vehicle to describe your personality, which vehicle would it be?
Oh, I like this.
Let's see.
So I'll take a stab because I actually drive this vehicle. So, and the people who know me, they know this is probably accurate. So I drive a Ford F-150 four-door truck.
Yeah.
Because I am a laid back, easy country girl. But I still need to be, I have a control issue, so I need to be up high so I can see everything around me and around people. And if you get too far my way, you scared of my big truck. So that's kind of
training day-ish. That's kind of
training
yeah,
day-ish, yeah.
yeah.
But my license plate says brown sugar.
Oh, okay.
See, sweet until she's not.
Sweet until she's not. Exactly.
That's funny. Well, I don't drive this vehicle, but if I had to be embodied by a vehicle, I would say maybe like a crossover SUV, maybe I don't know what brand, you name a brand, but let's say a Lexus. I think because I'm versatile and I'm practical, and I try to take a classic but innovative approach, and I'm suitable. I could go to the ball, or I could go to the construction site and handle what needs to be handled.
Every now and then I ask a quirky question. I thank you both for making that question.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was good.
Saving me from myself.
Yeah.
What you got, Victor?
Well,
can we ask questions to you all? Ricky, what kind of vehicle would you have?
Yeah, that's a different show. That's a different show. And at the conference, Legends and Leapers, we flipped the script.
Got it. Questions.
I like how you did that.
That's a cliffhanger for next year,
Right.
And he's in Nashville. So
Plug. Yes. So my first question was a setup, and Amber, thank you for doing that, because I really did want to get into your community organizing, especially in this environment, in this climate where we are having a very robust conversation around DEI, around inclusion, around equity, around all of those things. So how did you, I'm going to ask this question to you directly on you taking the community organization. And then Ms. Davita, I want you to kind of talk about it from your perspective in the procurement and in that realm. How are you taking those lessons and then applying them not only to LAWA, but creating that track for us to be able to continue to have these opportunities moving forward?
Wow, this is a great question. Thank you. I think that the number one thing you learn about organizing is that you can only get what you have the power to get, right? Everything is about building power. And strategy is important, right? That's because you have to have the strategy to understand who the targets are, who can get you what you want. And you have to have a long-term vision of what does power look like in your position, in your industry, in your sector, right? So I think that's really what shaped my view. I think the other thing that you learn from organizing is that connections and collective action is really built through storytelling, right? Being able to put together a narrative and make people understand your point of view and connect to your shared experiences. I mean, I think that's something that, again, bringing back to the mission of AMAC, I think that's something that really binds together the people who are committed to AMAC and participate in AMAC, is this vision that we all have of bringing something more to our communities and bring something more to our families, and the stories that we tell about, probably everyone, a lot of folks on here, could tell a story about their grandparent or their great grandparent. My grandfather was one of the first Black contractors in San Diego. And he was originally, he was one of 16 children who came out from Texas to California as part of that, Western migration. So, we see the things that he experienced as a contractor, coming out of World War II and segregation, and some of those same conditions still apply today, but also some of those same opportunities and the opportunities that he had to, change the condition of his family from one generation to the next is also, a narrative that inspires you and kind of helps you see a vision for, what this work really looks like. And so, when I talk to other contractors, they all have a story about either their own, where they came from, what inspired them, what they're inspired to do, what they're inspired to do for the airport, what they're inspired to do for their communities and their families. And so those are the voices that need uplifting. It's not just, oh, we need X% on this contract, or we need, this consideration with respect to bonding. It's like, we need this because we are part of the community and we have a lot to offer. And, we're building this community along with this infrastructure. So, I think that is some of the lessons that I learned from organizing.
And so for me on that front, and dealing in the, the hot climates that we're dealing in right now surrounding DE&I, just like you said, for me, it is, and this almost sounds a little cliche and I don't want it to sound this way, but because I truly believe in this, is where you try to unite the true believers. A couple of us were, hanging out at one of the conferences, and I will leave the other conference nameless, but it was happening at the same time. And you got to look around the room to see who's here and then who's at the other conferences. And for me, we were talking about, hey, the true believers are at one and not necessarily the other. And so for me, the thing to help combat, some of these things are uniting those true believers. And when I, everybody knows what I mean when I say true believers. And so it is uniting those folks who really, really buy in and believe in why the D&I efforts are even necessary. And so, that's the first leg of it for me. So finding those people who are like-minded, who may not look like you, but are like-minded. And so for me, because those people then can also help you open doors when you don't have those DE&I abilities. And so finding those true believers and people who think like you but don't look like you is our first line of defense that we try to take a stance here. But the other part for me, and you'll hear me anytime, if you sit down and talk to me anytime about what we do, my biggest thing I will always go back to is educating people. And when I say educating people, I mean educating our vendors and the people that we work with, educating them on how to fully operate their business, how to weather the storms, all those things. We're teaching people to build capacity and showing them how to be sustainable. For me, those are so many of the key things that will help us get through the whole lack of DE&I at any point in time. Because if you can be that type of business person who can weather all those storms, you're a thinker. You think outside the box, those things will push you along really far. And so, but you got to be educated, because what I oftentimes find, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, is people have a great ability to have a skill. They can sell you something, but they do not know how to fully scale their business or even to run their business. And so for me, you got to educate people. So you got to, unite the true believers and then educate our folks. All the things that we know, all the ins and outs that we know, because we are practitioners, those are the things we should be teaching individuals. Where are the holes? Where are the strategies? We need to be teaching folks those things. So it's educating them.
I'm sorry to pause this because I now have a self-esteem issue. I'm afraid that if I speak up, Victor's going to call me old. So I'm pausing.
Brother, I was differential. You got the floor. It's all yours. I got you.
Well, I'm always pleased when I hear a woman, especially an amazing woman, give honor to a man. In the case of Amber, a grandfather, and she acknowledged that he was the first. That's something. My father was the first. As a matter of fact, my father was the first man to call me son, and so that was pretty compelling to me as well. So AMAC, through the foundation, we have the Celebrate Women in Aviation event, where we honor women, and then we have the Fireside Chat that Karen Ellis moderates on behalf of the Airport Leadership Collective. Again, we're trying to elevate and showcase the amazing presence of women. And then we're also having some discussion now about an AMAC summit that centers on issues around women and aviation. And so the topic of women is an important discussion in this industry. We know it's not March. It's a little early, but since we have two amazing women on, can you speak to why is it so important in this day and time that the voice of women be elevated to a point that it's not just heard, but it's embraced and that it is compelling?
You go first, Davita. I started last. I got to think about this one.
Amber. So for me, it is so I'll say it this way. I don't want us to continue to be here when my 9-year-old gets into the work world. I don't want her to still be dealing with the same exact things that I'm dealing with. And so anybody with daughters, a mom, a sister, whatever that looks like, you don't want them to be in the same position that we are right now, because still today, when we walk in a room, when I go into a meeting, lots of time I'm already outnumbered. And so I don't want my daughter to go in with that same feeling, because right now, and the way things keep getting pushed backwards, it's even more compelling now that we make sure that women, because again, you can be at the table and they can invite you in and you can be at the table, but they hear nothing that you say. Or even if they hear what you say, do they move on it? And so for us to not be in the same spot that we are, because again, there so many things can be done with diversity of thought. And so if we're only hearing one lens, one view, and that may be just a male view, we're missing a whole nother side of the view. And so again, I am a believer in the book. I think it was a book years ago, Women Are From Venus, Men Are From Mars. That is the truth in whatever level you want to put it, because we all have different lenses that we look through. And sometimes that's role-based and that's gender-based, but that is factual. And so if we're truly not hearing the voice of women and then acting upon what we are hearing, then again, we're missing a whole nother side of anything, and a whole nother great experience. And especially in aviation, that needle can continue to be moved. I've run across some brilliant engineers in my time working in the aviation industry, and they still play a backseat role, and they have amazing ideas, things that could really push the aviation industry even further, and their voices just don't get heard. And again, like I said, if we stopped and took our time to kind of listen to those voices, because I don't want my daughter to still be having the same arguments that I'm having, or having to push so hard and be the Denzel from Training Day.
Right. No, I think that it has everything to do with people's voices, being heard or not heard, unfortunately, as too often the case. And I think that, again, aviation in particular, or any industry that's as vibrant as aviation, is totally dependent on adapting, innovating, being able to pivot, move to the next thing. And so to the extent that you're excluding, the voices of women, you're, for one, leaving 50% of the brain power and talent on the table, which we cannot afford to do. We can't afford to leave anyone's talent off the table. And then I think the other thing is you're forfeiting so much innovative thought, right? I mean, we definitely see, and I think and just as I mentioned earlier, how aviation in some ways, is certainly not as diverse as it needs to be with respect to gender, race, ethnicity, age, whatever have you. However, I think, we have a lot to be proud of with respect to, compared to especially other industries, especially other tech and construction heavy industries, where there is greater, I think, opportunity that's been gained for people of color and women. And I think that one of the reasons why women have you have women, so many prominent women in aviation. The woman that I originally came to LAWO to work for, Deborah Flint, you have Cynthia Guidry, you have Ebony Wimbush, you have, just so many astonishing, leaders at airports and in aviation, is because aviation is an industry where innovative voices do matter. And I think that's one of the reasons why those women have been able to break through, because at the end of the day, they had something to say and an approach and a strategy that brought value to the industry. And unfortunately, it should be assumed that that's what we bring, rather than constantly, coming into the room and it being assumed the opposite. And so that's what we need to work on.
That's a hard question to follow, Ricky.
Now you're having a self-esteem issue.
Yeah, man. Now I gotta figure this. We're supposed to be doing better as being alums, brother. We got to do better with each other. We got to figure this out.
lot of love. So here's one. I think both Amber and Victor, and maybe you too as well, Davita, alluded to at least the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action and admissions. My question to you is, when you heard about that ruling, again, although it applies to college admission, we just heard today that there was an appellate court ruling against the SBA that's moving closer and closer to the ACDBE and the DBE programs as well, right? So when you first heard that ruling, one, how did it affect you? Did it cause you to think that perhaps we're getting closer to a place where we don't have these programs and women and minorities will be able to demonstrate how they can stand on their own? Or did it spark fear that a program a law designed to level the playing field might go away and make it more difficult for us to demonstrate that we can stand on our own? Or is it did it hit you in another way?
Well, for me, man, Ricky, you said this was supposed to be a fun and entertaining series, and now we're about to go to the womp
We're going there.
side.
Yes, we're going
to
there.
the womp side.
Yep.
To be frank, first of all, sadly, we've already existed. Like I said, California has been in that world for 30 years, so we know what it looks like on the other side of that, unfortunately. I would say that I already saw that coming back in 2016, when we saw how the presidential election went. Like, again, this speaks to organizing and analyze, power analysis, and knowing, the Supreme Court is, the Supreme Court is a huge piece of leverage that they're using to push their agenda, and that's just the way it's gone. We've been seeing that for the last 50 years, so none of it is surprising. I think going back, unfortunately, I think going back to what Davita was saying, I think unfortunately we do have to prepare for the day when these programs are eliminated and or curtailed. We don't want to hear it, we don't want to think it, we don't want to see it, but I think we would be doing a disservice if we don't share the information that we have to prepare both the agencies, the prime contractors, and the diverse and small businesses themselves for what it looks like on the other side of those days. And I think we also have to, unfortunately, let this serve as the reminder that nothing is ever won. You constantly have to keep defending and fighting and defending, and nothing is ever won. It just doesn't work that way. It's always a power struggle, unfortunately. You know, that's the way I see it. And I think that going back to innovation, I think we have to, you know, while the DBEs and the MeBe programs, while they exist, we leverage the heck out of them. And I think we think about the strategy and the opportunities that may lie past that, as far as, you know, is it joint venturing? Is it, you know, is it combining forces? Is it, you know, maybe you won't have that family legacy business that you envisioned. Maybe you're going to have to be part of a you know, consortium of businesses or a conglomerate of businesses. It's going to look different than we wanted it to look, or we thought it would look. But that's, I mean, I think most of us are come from families and cultures and histories where we always had to overcome and adapt to, unfortunately, what you know, the dominant people in power are, the agenda that they're implementing.
Yeah, and I echo exactly what Amber says. I don't know that any of us are really shocked at all. To tell you the truth, I'm right there where Amber was and what we were doing with our past president, because I thought it would happen then. And so we were already preparing then. What does this look like? What should we be doing? How can we continue to help our businesses who we know are good businesses and they need to continue to work? And so again, it is being strategic. My current boss came to me several months ago, and because of where we are in Tennessee and the fight that we're in, you know, of our lives right now, who's controlling the airport authority where we are, again, because that could potentially change the face of what we do here, because our local program is more robust than our federal program. And so that is fully controlled by who is running our local board. And so for us, that change could still be imminent no matter what comes out of the federal government. That could be a shift and a change from where we are now. And so we've already tried to think about strategies that we need to put in place to help some of these businesses and help to make our programs look a little different. Do we go down just the strictly small business avenue? Because who's going to fight small businesses versus couching it in something that's race and gender conscious? Is that our avenue? Is that the direction that we should go in? And so we've already been kicking around lots of our strategies to try to figure out how we protect the momentum that we've currently got going, because, and part of that is it's such a huge economic driver for our city. And so we've been continuing to fine tune because we do economic impact studies. And so we're continuing to fine tune those things because, we want to be able to point in that direction. And so for me, that also goes back to what kind of data are we keeping in our programs? Because again, it helps when you are doing economic impact studies, because then you can show fully how these businesses impact our local economies. And so who's going to really fight you too hard on those kinds of things? And so we are really trying to fine tune that data to show the economic impact that's being made.
Yeah, and I would say, at this last AMAC conference in San Antonio, I was part of a panel that discussed, strategies for agencies and primes and small businesses and diverse businesses to prepare for this. But just, without redoing the whole panel, I just want to echo and emphasize what Davita just said about data. Make sure that every one of you and all the organizations that you belong to are lobbying and advocating to ensure that every agency, every organization from top to bottom is tracking the data and the demographics regardless, because, whether or not they're allowed to do race and gender conscious programming, there's always going to be a political push to create greater equity. I mean, at the end of the day, people want to see the money going to people who represent their communities. And so we have to have that data and that, that has to be something that there's transparency around so that the communities can know who and where and how to push. So if you don't have a B2G Now system, or if you don't have a electronic tracking system, make sure your agency is putting it in place, because that takes time and money.
Yep, and get one in then.
Or you might even have a PRISM system.
A PRISM,
Right.
any of those that
I'm
you
not-
have,
yes.
any that you have. We're not advocating for one over the other.
Yes,
but
we're
it's
not
also
we're
important-
not marketing, just whatever
No, we're
system
not
is going to help
marketing.
you track.
Yeah, and then not only track it, but report it out loud. Because
That
I think
part.
that's the other thing that we forget to do sometimes, report it out loud so people can hear it and see it.
Those are great answers. And actually, you guys got me thinking a little bit. Amber, you talked about how generational or family businesses will look different in the future. You talked about what, and we've obviously talked about what the difference would be in a race or gender neutral environment. Amber, you work in a race and gender neutral environment. I live in that type of environment. And my question is going to come with a little caveat because I'm explaining coming down to Florida and establishing offices down in Florida in a race and gender neutral environment. Having a DBE certification really doesn't mean anything. And I'm be honest about what that is. It doesn't mean anything to the local areas. It doesn't mean anything to the communities you're trying to be involved in, because they are focused on their local businesses. They have a local business hub, and those local business hubs, how do I say, they are ripe for manipulation of the numbers, right? So in you guys' positions, how do you find or ensure ways that DBE businesses, those that don't fit the small criteria that usually surrounds local businesses, because local small businesses usually have smaller criteria. So you have businesses that are generational or family-owned businesses that travel across the country and enter new markets. How do you ensure that there's, I don't even know equal playing field is the right word, but how do you show that there's a lane that they actually get to operate in that allows them opportunities to compete? Because what happens is those businesses go in and they're now immediately forced to compete with every prime contractor that's out there with much deeper pockets. And because they're already pulled out of the local small business arena because of their size or their principles, monetary value, there is a harder time to be able to establish yourself and build that. So how do you guys, or what are efforts that we can start to implement now, knowing that this is where things are trending, that will ensure that we have this lane?
So
It's
for
tough.
me, what I would say,
go ahead,
it's
Davita.
hard because you're gonna have that, and it will be tough. So no qualms about it. We're transparent. It is still going to be tough no matter where you go, especially in those environments. But the first thing that I would tell you to do is find us in that environment. So find us. So people who do the work that we do, find us. And then I'm going to go back to my favorite word for the day is true believers. Find us who will then connect you with the true believers. So those GCs who are true believers, who then you can potentially partner with. Because what I have learned here, and we've done it, a couple of times here successfully, is we have found those folks who are true believers and they've done JVs with some of those other folks who have graduated from our program. They end up doing JVs with those individuals. And so again, it's not the easiest thing, and we haven't done that many of them, but we've done a couple, but it takes work. And it's cultivation, and it's that continued work. And we're just continuing to knock on the door and check in and trying to be creative and figure it out. But that's what I would tell you first. Find the people who do this work and have them point you to the true believers, for the people who are going to give you that opportunity to have the conversation and get in and do real work with them. Because for me, that's how you do it. You get in with the other people that are there, because that helps you learn the lay of the land, and then it helps other people become more comfortable with you, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
But again, it's still hard work.
It's hard. So I was going to say a lot of what she said. I was going to say, it's super hard, right? So this is one where you have to kind of throw the whole kitchen sink at it, right? We have to do a mixture of strategies and tactics, and just old-fashioned footwork, legwork, networking, trying to break into the good old boys network. All of that is part of it. In terms of strategies and tactics, I think, strategically, like we, our inclusivity scoring is a big part of our strategy because that creates an incentive for the primes to be thoughtful about their engagement and their subcontracting and partnering strategies. And so that's important. Another thing is, you know, what's sometimes called unbundling, or looking at, can you do different tiers of procurement? So you have a lane that's for, you know, a small, a medium, a large, you know, and the thing about that is it's also economic efficiency, because then you align the firm with the capacity that they're best able to execute. You know, doesn't make sense to use a big old firm to do a tiny little project, and vice versa. So, I mean, you have to, again, that's where the strategy comes in. You have to think about the business case. And then I think there's also like looking at the different certifications that might apply, partnering with teams that might have the certifications you need. Like, so for example, we have reciprocity with a number of certifying agencies, and in public works, there's, we have in the state of California, there's a public works SBE. So because of the size of capital programs, that SBE threshold is much higher than like a local small SBE might be. So I think there's no easy answer. It's like I said, you kind of have to do everything. You have to do all of the above, really. And so I think the two things are talking to us, and we'll tell you what we know and what we're trying. And I think more importantly, we need to listen to you. Like the most of the strategies and tactics that I advocate for, I didn't come up with them. Somebody like you, Victor, or your dad, you know, told me this is what we need, or have you done, you know, or this is what I saw happen over, you know, in Nashville airport, they're doing this, or this is what they're doing up, you know, up in Seattle or wherever have you. And so these are, the information has to get shared around, and you have to tell us what you need, and we'll think about how we can sell it, you know, put it into a narrative, put it into the business case. And that's where I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not even an entrepreneurial type. You know, I'm just really an advocate and somebody who understands bureaucracy. So that's what I do.
And so the only thing and so what I'd like to add, and I just thought about this, the one thing that I'd like to add is that I have lost some of those fights because I've got an amazing engineering firm that I can't get work here. They can get work all over the country. I can't get them work here, but I sent them to one of my partner agencies, and they got work. So if I can't help you where I'm at, I'll try to send you to somebody else who can, because I don't always win the fight.
Yeah. And not to end on a down note, but we lose a lot of fights. I think that my integrity is about you seeing that I'm going to fight every fight. I'm not going to win every fight, but I'm going to fight every fight. And so that's what I'm, you know, that's my approach.
I think that's why we have you guys on. It's never about the fact that you win every fight. And I think all of us understand, and any of those that are entrepreneurs, if you go in thinking that you're going to win every fight, you're failing from the get-go, right? Every opportunity and those fights that you guys go in are opportunities for you to learn. And as you said, for us to be able to bounce ideas back and forth off of each other. So thank you guys for leading and being in those efforts, being in those seats and being voices, lionesses, so to say. That's awesome.
I would hate to be the person that loses a fight to one of you. And turn it over to Ebony.
I'm thinking Denzel too. King Kong ain't got and a woman who drives an F-150, y'all better watch out. It's fun, fantastic. I was so excited for this conversation. One, because, you know, of course, as you heard, right? The passion, the willingness to serve, right? And the job that they've done and continue to do. And what most of you probably know, because you've seen them around a lot, they are such great champions for AMAC. And so it is our honor to spotlight both of you and the work that you're doing in this space and with and for AMAC. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes. Applause. So with this, we are wrapping up. It is 2:59, and officially Legends and Leapers comes to a close. What we've known after the official close is that we stay on a few minutes, and Amber and Davita and Ricky and Victor, if they have, well, one of them will stay on, and we have the after show, right? And just have some casual conversation about some topics that maybe they'll explore more, and some topics that will be completely different. And so again, thank you for joining another installation of Legends and Leapers. I have to say this because Miss Davita is on. Davita is the host, the conference host of our 2024 AMAC annual conference. I was in Nashville last week. And I see Karen on, and San Antonio, you know, we're still talking about Karen, right? Best conference this year. And what I said to Davita, I said, we're going to have the best conference in 2024, but we're really planning something special for you guys, and you'll be hearing more very shortly on our finalized date and location. So stay tuned to Connections, our social media websites. We hope to see you in Austin, those of you that are either interested in doing business in that part of the country or in that part of the country on September 20th. And again, thanks, and have a great afternoon. And with that, Victor and Ricky, I don't know who's doing the after party.
So this is Lauren's idea, and I've never quite understood it, because it's not like, you know, we go from virtual to private rooms.
It's just like the courtesy to tell people, like, we're sticking to our time. You can sign off.
All right. You can get off, but we're going to have a little fun.
Ricky, that question you asked about the card was good one. That was a good one. So maybe the final in the after show is you get to ask another question like that. All right. What, you got another good one?
Oh, wow. Okay. So are you so on your best day, are you a jeans girl or a dress girl? A jeans girl or a sundress girl? Are you a jeans girl or a sundress girl on your best day?
Best meaning most efficient, effective, sexiest. What's the criteria for best?
Yes.
Whatever your criteria is.
That's right, exactly.
Well, you were crossover, Amber, so you know.
I know.
Utility vehicle.
Right, she's going to have a dress with some skirts. That's
You actually stole my answer. My answer is shorts. I'm a shorts.
Shorts,
I'm going shorts.
Okay.
Sundress. I am trying to be
sundress with that F-150, Davita.
With my boots,
I was not
yes,
ready
sir.
for that. I
With
was
my
not ready
boots,
for that.
yes,
I
sir.
thought you
Yes,
was going to
sir.
be jeans and t-shirts. She said
Yes,
sundress.
sir.
Yeah.
I've got a running board. I can hop right up there with my sundress and my boots, because I am comfortable. I am good.
Hey, Denzel's still a lady. That's all. That's what we found out right now.
Denzelita.
Denzelita.
I love it.
Something new. I know Ricky didn't want to answer your question, but the question could be for him.
And the answer's coming in Nashville.
Okay, whatever the question is, the answer's coming in that.
Hey man, this is an awesome thing to be able to do, to say I don't get to answer nothing until I show up at the big conference. Ricky, I want to be like you when I grow up.
Well, me, Lauren, Maury, you get the same privilege now.
Oh,
as a moderator.
I like that.
That is funny. That is hilarious.
Since we don't have I'm sorry, Davita, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, since we don't have Miss Lauren and her wit here, Ricky, look, we will take the opportunity to thank everybody once again, and join us next month. I know we didn't answer the question about opportunities, but of course, one of the things that we want to do is connect you to opportunities. So I'm sure both Davita and Amber can point you in the right direction, but I certainly did put their links to upcoming upcoming opportunities at their respective airports. And also you'll find that those links take you to how to do business in those airports. And so take a look at that, and we'll be highlighting their outreach events on our calendar. So keep searching back and looking for things to come, including things in person and virtually.
Awesome.
All right.
Absolutely.
We miss
Thank
you,
you. This has
Lauren.
been such an
We miss you,
honor.
Lauren.
We do miss you, Lauren.
We miss you, Lauren.
Yeah.
I like being the fourth option and volunteer, but Lauren, I'm just keeping your seat warm. It's hot in this seat. I like to be on Amber's side. Let me answer questions, get on about my life. I'm good.
And
But thank you all
Amber,
for the
I heard you
opportunity.
say- Yeah, both you and Davita, we appreciate you.
Yes,
We really
yes,
do.
very much,
So thank
very
you. It's our honor and our privilege to hear from both of you.
And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Just
Absolutely.
don't
Right.
be
Thank you.
compensated.
Oh, well, this
The
conference
laughter is the compensation. The laughter is the compensation.
love.
Yes. Ebony compensated me last week, so I'm good.
Oh, and Davita,
All right.
I'm gonna need,
Have a great day,
all
everyone.
the barbecue
All right, thank you
listings,
all.
Davita.
Oh yeah.
Same to you, Amber. Thank you all so much.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.